Okay, it's streaming.
Okay, let's do it. Atención, por favor. Welcome, one and all, to the February 9th, 2026 General Meeting of the Los Angeles Astronomical Society. Give yourself a round of applause. Thank you all for grabbing your last minute parking pass and whizzing over here. Was that whizzing? Yeah, it was whizzing. The Komodo wagon definitely whizzed. Okay. We will start by asking for any new members that are attending for the first time. Do we have any here in the audience? I see a lot of familiar faces, so I'm going to say no. Do we have any in Zoom land? I can't see the Zoom, so somebody let me know if they wish to introduce themselves to the club.
Hi, my name is Constantine Fodiadis. This is my first time joining. I apologize, I don't have a camera set up just yet, but I will for the next one. And excited to hear what goes on.
Excellent, excellent. Well, welcome. Do you have any interest in astrophotography?
I do, very amateur, but I've done some time in the space industry and been captured ever since. So very excited.
Awesome. Well, there's not too many professionals amongst our ranks, but yeah, we have a really special treat tonight. Our guest speaker is one of our own, and has been my mentor in learning astrophotography. So I'm happy that you can also, yes, be what how's that work out? Get his wind under your wings, as well. I believe that's the turn of phrase. Okay, enough of that. So the agenda tonight will be Ben, our speaker. Then we'll be doing a little Q&A, which I suspect there will be some. Then I will make some announcements. Then I will praise a particular member who I feel deserves praise for their efforts on behalf of the club and the Good Heaven segments. And then we'll do some door prize giveaways. And then I'll tell you what your future could hold should you want to be held by the club's events. And with that specific amount of ado, I would like to introduce our speaker for the evening, our own Ben Guthrie.
Hello there. All right, let me just share my screen here and we'll get on with a little presentation. Okay, so I'm assuming you can all see this. So I think I'll start with just a little bit of context. So this was born out of a conversation that got going on our internal forums surrounding like sharing of information and techniques and what have you about surrounding astrophotography, different types of astrophotography. So we put out a poll and said, what are the things that people would like to learn about? Do we have any experts or, inspiration within the club that is willing to share? And, what are their skill sets? And we got a pretty varied group of responses, which, maybe 50% of the people wanted to focus on deep sky astrophotography, and then kind of everybody else sort of had a smattering of things. And so I thought the way to start this was some really like high level sort of techniques and what have you, with the hopes of like driving more specific, more focused techniques after. So this first one's going to be very high level. So Constantine, this is for you, and people who are like astrophotography curious. So a little bit of context. I'm not a scientist. I have very little science in my life. My father was a science teacher and sort of inspired me to like drive for more and search for more and all the rest of that. And that moves me through today. COVID took me from very simple macro photography and stuff at home to looking to get further and further and closer to the stars. And that kind of grew my thing. Love a technical challenge. I found that if I, tried to get a telescope set up at a remote observatory, I just lost interest. I really like touching and interacting with this stuff. And it's been a big part of it. And my career through a bunch of corporate companies has had me lots of experience. And so what I'm hoping to do here is to sort of inspire more conversation, get more collaboration, get more people to contribute and share their ideas and kind of dig a little bit deeper. And so I was just going to poke through a bunch of different types of astrophotography and different sort of techniques surrounding like the philosophies of what needs to happen with the hopes that we can inspire that. And maybe at the end, people will ask for more and try to drive some more conversation. So we'll cover a bunch of different things, different types of imaging. I'll work through a little bit of a data set. just very, very high level from a C-star system and talk about the difference of choices you might make through mounts and cameras and filters and things like that, because they play a big role in what we do. So, like, one of the core principles right out of the gate that differs from regular photography is that with regular photography, we're always trying to capture a freeze a moment in something that requires a very, very short shutter, because that subject's just going to change immediately after you take the picture. And astrophotography tends to, not always, but a lot of it has a subject that really doesn't change much in a lifetime. And so you can continue to take not just pictures of a subject and blend them over days or years even, but you can actually separate out the separate colors. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that kind of thing. And in order to do that, we have to figure out how to stabilize it to avoid motion blur and shutters and all the rest of those issues that come along with that. So the underlying principles are super important, that you sort of think about this a little bit differently than still photography in most cases. Obviously, there's exceptions with comments and things like that. Out of the gate, when we head out, there's quite a big difference between alt-az and equatorial, and even with all the new smart mounts these days, there's sort of a spin to try to drive us towards going onto an equatorial mount. And I wanted to sort of capture, one of the big differences between the two is that as the image is rotating, you're effectively cropping your image smaller and smaller and smaller. And so you'll get a bit of value out of trying to go down the path of an equatorial mount, though I understand that in lots of cases that isn't always practical. But I think it's a thing that will affect your image. So understanding the difference about how the two of them work, one having very little field rotation, and the other having a significant amount that slowly rotates and crops your image down. So what you're seeing here is a stack from a C-star, and as the image rotated through the night, the usable portion of the image that was the stack of all the images gets smaller kind of as time goes by. So something to think about when you're picking your path through there. And so starting at the very easy end of this, even with mobile phones these days, most of them have modes. I've seen a few people this over the last year sort of discover how much you can really get from a mobile phone. They're getting so much better these days, and they're employing a lot of the same tricks that we use in astrophotography to do with stacking images, taking multiple exposures, but quietly not telling you that they're doing it. And so they're getting better and better. The picture on the right actually was just taken with my mobile phone, and it's quite easy to do these days. An iPhone has a 30-second exposure if you know how to trigger it, and the result can be quite impressive. So there's a path, very, very high end, right at the early. And that concept of stacking applies through a lot of what we do through here. And this really comes down to a core understanding of what's going on with the stacking in order to know how to get the most value out of it. And so what you're really doing by stacking is, the grainy noise that comes in your picture, you're averaging that out, and the useful piece of data that's within the image that you're after, you're averaging that in. The noise is inconsistent on every frame. The stars and the nebula are consistent. And so as you stack and stack and stack and stack, the noise goes away, the image gets better, and the better the image, the harder you can stretch it and the more data you can get out of that stuff. And so we've got a bunch of things that happen for us. That averaging in of signal and out of noise is part of it. We've got things like sigma rejection, which you'll see in some of the stacking tools, that pull out things that are inconsistent per frame, but also an artifact. And they kind of know to get rid of them because they change constantly. So we have conversations about satellites and planes wrecking our image, but the reality is that if you attack this the right way, they're pretty irrelevant. They kind of tend to go away if you know how to sort of set yourself up for success through here. So more images, better fidelity, but at some point you may not notice it. So the diminishing returns will guide you to jump to the next target and look at something else. Occasionally, though, there's the motion blur that comes from the stars can be kind of pretty. So we talked a little bit about how to make use of star trails. So star trails can be maximized by doing lots of long exposures with very short breaks in between. And there's some wonderful software called StarSax that's quite easy to take advantage of. Very, very, very simple to use.
Okay,
Thank you.
and I think I'm gonna mute you.
Okay. Okay. So you don't need much more equipment to make use of this than you currently have. Typically, someone with a camera, I've even seen it done with a mobile phone, just taking long exposures and understanding how to maximize those things and minimize the gaps between your frames can result in something pretty good. So again, if somebody's inspired by this, definitely reach out and chat on the forum about it. There's a number of people that have tried this and been quite successful with it. the end result is that you get everything that happened through the night, which includes people turning on their red flashlights, which includes planes and satellites and comet or meteorites and all those things. They'll all happen and all get kind of burned into it. And there's ways to minimize and clean those things out. But this is something you can do with the camera you have. You don't need anything special from that. If you want to get rid of those and you want to like crisp up the image, or you want to shoot deeper into the night with a longer lens, longer exposures, and really draw out those details, you have to start talking about tracking heads. Tracking heads are, inherently understand how to counteract the rotation of the Earth, require a little bit of effort for polar alignment, not much effort. And this is like the first step that I took in my backyard, trying to figure out how to see a little bit further. I took my existing camera and tripod, got a tracking head. It was only a couple $100, and immediately the picture sort of shows up. You can kind of see Orion pops into the sky, and that's where the fever started for me. Was as soon as I got one of these things, I realized that it enabled me to suddenly see that much further, which eventually learned into a rather large telescope. But this is the great first step to take that I think kind of gets you caught in it. One of the extensions you can do once you've gone down this path is you can start working on deepscapes or nightscapes, or these things where you're compositing two images, one long exposure of the foreground, many long exposures of the tracked exposures of the sky, and compositing the two of these together. You really don't get to take pictures like the one you see here, or where people show nebula or galaxies above mountains like that, unless you get comfortable with the idea of compositing two images together, which is, of course, what this is. And in order to really push this further and see nebula and galaxies and things in the sky above, people will take a camera and modify the filter right on the front of the sensor, send it in, and have that removed. And that's how you end up with pictures like this. There's not really another useful way to do this. When it comes to deep sky imaging, which is where I usually send myself, there's now some very easy ways to get into this. There's small, simple scopes. The sea star is an example I'm showing here, my terribly big, complex scope at the top. But these ones are really, this is where you're going into the deep end. And this is the place I'd like to take a talk after this, into like the nuances of how to get the most out of this. But here you're getting into, computers and special cameras that are cooled, high quality tracking mounts with a guider on them. This is where polar alignment gets really important, long exposures, and then lots of times post-processing too. So, maybe imaging the entire night for like this example of the elephant trunk in here is an 8 hours worth of exposure, but it's actually 453-minute exposures that are all blended together. And so it can be very complex, but these new scopes, these smart scopes that we're seeing pop up all over the place, the sea stars and the unistellars, this is the easy way to step into this. So these are magical little things that pair with your phone or your iPad. They do everything on board. They're doing the stacking for you. They're doing the polar alignment for you. They're doing all these things built into them. And they're getting better all the time. There's one that's just come out that's got a 585 sensor in it that is a really nice sensor. And I'm going to hit on that 585 a little bit later because it's been made more accessible for people. So these will actually record an image that you can do quite a bit with. So even though the onboard image might have a little bit of information lost in it, you can take this offline and process for the most part. So this is a bit of a hybrid, but it's also not an upgradable path. These are sort of buy it as it is, use it as it is. And if you want something more, you're probably going to buy another entire setup. One of the places that these things typically fall a little bit short is planetary. Planetary stuff requires some pretty specific exposures. It requires some interesting post-processing. Typically, this stuff's shot with video that's stacked, and the stacking process eliminates most of the frames of the video and preserves the glorious ones and the result of it. So the image that you see at the top is actually a cycling video, and the result of that is the image in the bottom that gets that extra detail out of it. And so there's a bit of two swings in this. And so those smart scopes tend to shore up a little bit here, but this is kind of a unique path of its own, and it tends to require pretty different equipment, very long telescopes, and usually the biggest problem is finding your subject. But you can afford to not have guiding and have a fair amount of drift and be quite successful here. The guiding is really a correction for errors in the tracking of the mount, and so errors in your polar alignment and the tracking causing the subject to slowly drift out of frame. The guider is just another camera, another telescope, usually, not always, sometimes it's using your main scope, that is watching the stars move across the sky, and it's checking them every second or two. So it can't be your camera that's taking 3-minute exposures, but it's another little camera that's looking, and every second or two, it's checking to see if the stars are drifting out of frame and correcting for it. And so even though with really wide exposures, you very often don't need a guider because there's not that much drift that's there. The wonderful thing that a guider does is it keeps your framing constant through the night. It doesn't allow you to slowly drift out of the frame. And I've had a few hard lessons with that one. So there's a bunch of different styles, some that look through your telescope, some that require their own tiny telescope. They're usually sort of like a third of the focal length of the telescope you're actually using. So they want a wider field of view, so they've got a good chunk of stars in there. And they're very often monochrome, which allows them to see a little bit more light and have a little bit more to work with in order to keep your telescope on its target. So regarding mono versus color sensors, they're interesting. There's a choice down here, and usually what ends up happening is the people that go deep down this rabbit hole, they tend to start with a color camera because it's much, much simpler to sort of get going. And at some point, they realize that they really want to try the monochrome path. And so monochrome is really interesting. Regarding the first thing I sort of suggested is that your subject's not really changing. And so a regular color camera where you're trying to snap everything all at once isn't quite as important because you can shoot all the red today and all the blue tomorrow and all the green the next day and still have a great image. Obviously, you can't do that with a regular camera. So monochrome allows you to split up the colors to the night. And the reason it's valuable is because your color sensor isn't really a color sensor. Under the hood, your color sensor is what they call Bayer color for the most part. And a Bayer color sensor has a little pattern on it, a bunch of tiny filters that are built into it, red, green, blue, green, usually 2 greens for every red and blue. And what they're doing is deriving color from that. And so a red pixel ends up being a full color because what they do is they combine the neighboring green and add that to it. And then they combine the neighboring blue and add that to it. And so you kind of get a little bit of a softer image from that. When you shoot monochrome, you get the whole filter, the whole sensor, all the stuff from a single filter, and then you change the filter and you shoot it again. The result is that you typically get more detail from it because you're not having to sort of compute the result. You actually get each photosite filled with that color. And so there's some pros and cons with these. The ease of use with a Bayer color, the complexity with a monochrome usually results in a much nicer image. And so that monochrome image typically comes from 3 different filters. In this case, I'm showing you 6 different filters that were used. And so in this case, I've shot all of the oxygen as one layer, and all the sulfur as one layer, and all the hydrogen alpha as another layer. And then I also shot red, green, and blue solely for the stars. And then I composited these images together. But I'd shown you this because you can clearly see that each filter gets a different image. And in this case, I chose to combine those images using a thing called the 4X palette, which makes this really pretty red, green, blue kind of image. Again, I'm a photographer, not a scientist, and I appreciate that this isn't legitimately what you might see as you look through a camera, but it is quite pretty. And it's quite painstaking, quite honestly, to get into this. So I would always suggest that this is a tier 2 thing, sort out the color and get comfortable with all the other facets and then talk about mono. But this is usually where people end up because of the fidelity that you end up getting and the control you end up getting, the flexibility you get in processing. And when all of this complexity comes with effort. So there's all kinds of caveats to this path, including if you didn't shoot it all, you typically don't have an image. You have to go back and shoot the rest of it to fill your image. Where if you shot color for a night and you didn't get enough, you can still make an image. And that's always a thing that hung over me. A common conversation through here is what's the right exposure? So what do we really get out of, do we choose to shoot with these smart scopes for 10 seconds or 30 seconds? Or, I'm sometimes shooting up to 5 or 8 minutes for an exposure, like where's the right place to be? And usually the statement is don't fill the histogram, don't fill up your pixels, your photosites with data because you'll clip at the top end. Make sure you get at least 30 images in each filter, or that signet clipping that gets rid of things won't work properly. And it usually for me results in somewhere between 3 to 5 minutes. With a bigger telescope and these smarter scopes, it's usually somewhere between sort of 10 and 30 seconds. And they attack the problem by using way more images to try to address the issue. There's a solid argument for somewhere around 3 minutes usually. The underlying thing when you're looking at a histogram, what I've hidden in the middle of this image is actually a histogram. So there's a tiny little spike all the way over and left. Usually when we shoot these images, the resulting images is almost pure black if it's not been stretched. It's the stretching that pulls that data and spreads it out across the entire histogram. So there's a tiny little spike on the left that goes to the top of the screen. And this is usually what an unstretched image looks like. It's almost pure black and all of the data hides down in a tiny little spike. And so the activity we have at this point is we take that image and we stretch it. And so we pull that data from that tiny little spike and spread it out so that we can see all that stuff and see, see the bit that we're really interested in. And you can see me kind of trying to do this on the left to give you an idea, but on the right-hand side, you can see there's an unstretched and a stretch image, both the same data. And so what usually happens is you stack all the data together at the end of the night, or your camera's doing it live on board, and then it's doing an auto stretch for you, and it kind of gets you close. And in the post-processing, you can usually get that much more. You can usually get a lot more fidelity if you're willing to put it out and play a little bit, and stretching is kind of how you access this stuff. The thing that's going on in your smart scopes these days is they're doing a live stretch for it. They're also saving that raw data under the hood so you can take it home and you can stack it and stretch it and kind of get to this state. So that's loosely where that's at. And so, as an example, I took some C-star data from one of the people in the club who was nice enough to share it with me, and I use it as a test package to sort of see what I could get out of their C-star data. And so C-star is returning over about 1080p images. They have a strong green cast, and so that green cast tends to be in color images. It's very, very common. It's usually misunderstood to be because there's two green pixels and one red and one blue. That's actually not it. That's averaged away. It's just that when you look at the overall curve of the data, green tends to be in the middle, red and blue tend to be on the other sides, and the sensors are just more sensitive in the middle. And that's usually why these images tend to be green. And so green often has to be removed. Anyway, the C-star sample data was quite heavily green. But it was very impressively clean, no banding and no issues associated with that. So this data set looked a little bit like this, and I sort of had to debayer it and pull that Bayer pattern out to get the color, and off we go. And so I went through a bunch of different packages with this, and so you'll find all these tools at your disposal. Some of these will go into detail, hopefully at the next session we get to do this. And I compared a bunch of them, and they're just shockingly similar. Like to the average person, you probably wouldn't notice massive differences in them. I didn't put PixInsight in here intentionally. It's definitely a more expensive package to go, but it does tend to result in a slightly better result. But CSAR did a wonderful job on board, did a great job of cropping the image out and getting rid of all the stacking artifacts around the edge. ASI offers a free package that actually from the same company as C-Star that resulted in something different. It kind of didn't strip out the edges, but it gave you a little bit more control. And then AstroPixel processor is another one that's quite friendly around here. And it doesn't do any of the extra things, but it does quite a good job. So that's kind of where all that landed out. And then so the difference between the live stack and a post process, well, there's a bit of creative stuff in here. So I don't want to go too far into that because you can make a lot of creative choices along the way. But the live stack really didn't have the opportunity to do a lot of the filtering and cleaning and stuff that can happen in post. So you can see the differences here that when you come home with a live stack and you want a little bit more, you can kind of play around with that image and get a little bit extra. So regarding what's happening sort of under the hood, a lot of these smart scopes will do a piece of this for you, or with some guidance, they'll do it for you. But generally speaking, we tend to shoot a bunch of lights, which is the source data, the raw images of the subject. We tend to shoot flats, which sort of isolate the optical artifacts in your terrain, little bits of dirt and dust and vignetting that happen from your telescope. Bias and dark files isolate noise coming from the sensor of the camera. And what you do is you subtract that noise and you subtract the flats all out of the lights. And so the lights are really just the pure data, and all of the artifacts are removed from them. And then you tend to stack all the lights together and move from there. And so this is the stuff that I think we should get into in a deeper class. After this, this is where about 50% of the people went, but I'm hoping that you can kind of take a little bit away from this. Lastly, I just wanted to touch on a new addition to the club, and that is something that Keith and I and a few others worked on. Keith, you can throw their names under the bus if you want. And we've had a few people test this out. So we've put together a RASA with a smart camera on everything. So I think this is like a logical next step for somebody who's used the smart scope and wants to do a little bit more, wants to sort of break through the ceiling. It's a club-owned scope now. It's sitting up at SCAS. It's available for people to use. It's very easy. It's very fun. It's very fast. It gathers the signal incredibly quickly. And this is one of the resulting images. I could probably zoom in a little bit more and you'd see all the pillars of creation and what have you. But this is the toy that we want to start people off who are curious about going a little bit deeper. So I'm not sure if I'm using up too much of my time here, so I'll bow out and go to the next step here. If you want to chat more, if you want to dig more into this stuff, get on groups.io. We've got an astrophotography channel in there. I'm hoping people will reach out and talk about the thing they're interested in and ask for a bit more help. I hope people will volunteer to go a little bit deeper and share a little bit more at these sessions or other ones like it online. And if you're just interested in seeing the result of some of the things I've been talking about, I've posted them on my own website there, or Instagram. But the conversation continues on the astrophotography forum, and then that's where we'll plan out another class like this, another session. Keith, how
All
am I
right.
doing for time? Are we okay?
Oh, you're good. You did great.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Ben.
Yeah, anytime. Man.
And he covered a heck of a lot of ground in a blistering amount of time. So thanks for that. And the idea, as he said, is to generate questions. So if that seemed like a lot, it was a lot. It was a lot. I mean, and, I had him explain a lot of that stuff to me in an annoying amount of detail and with an even more annoying amount of repetition. And he's somehow willing to do it. But if this is something that you want to partake in, this is actually one of the best things about being in this club, is that we have the membership that can help you with all the questions you have. I mean, there's a thing going on the group side right now about somebody struggling with an off-axis guider. And I mean, Ben and Alan and Chip, and there's a bunch of people out there helping out. And it's definitely a thing. Almost everything that Ben mentioned in this video is available for you to borrow. You don't even have to buy it. The club now has, aside from the Rasa rig, which he's right, it is so fun. Oh my gosh. You just throw the thing up there. It's in 4 pieces. The setup takes about 2 minutes, something like that. And it gets up and going. But we also have, we have a Sea Star. We have a Dwarf 3. And there's actually another one that none of you guys know about that's coming, I think, on Wednesday, which is actually really exciting also. Ben doesn't even know. All right. Is there anyone here that has any questions for Ben? We got one. All right, Tim. Let's have it. Thank you for being in the front row.
Short walk. Well, one of the topics you talked about was Sea Star and such telescopes that already do a bunch of processing in the telescope. Now, can you take the raw images from one of those telescopes and do your own and compare it to theirs? Do you analyze images they've already played with and you go further? What are you doing with the telescope, like one of these fancy new modern telescopes that's supposed to do it for you and save you all that work?
Yeah, I mean, that is interesting that you say that, because I actually did show a net sample image, and maybe I didn't hit on it very hard, where we took the raw image out and we compared it to one of the other ones, one of the post-process ones. And you can get quite a bit more out if you're willing to spend the time. they're fuzzying that line. Like the longer ASI has been working on this stuff, ZWO has been working on this stuff, they're getting better and better jobs right out of the device. But there's always more mileage you can get out of post-processing if you're interested. If you want to go from something you can show on your phone to something you can print, there's definitely more latitude inside those images to extract a bit more. And you might even shoot it differently if you sort of knew to do that, if you knew you were going to go down that path. Keith has actually had some pretty good experience. Maybe you're becoming as good as anyone with the ASI stacking software. They have some on software on your computer that doesn't happen on the C Star, so you could take the resulting image and put it into their stacking software and get a little bit more mileage out of it. There's this diminishing returns curve. As you, depending on how far you want to go, it gets more and more complex to get less and less more out of it. But the results, the best results, always come from a bit of effort, for sure.
Thanks. It looks like we have one on the Zoom from David Hasenauer. He says, "What is the optimum integration time for an F9 telescope under SQM 18 skies?" He uses a smart eye.
Well, you're the smart eye expert, Keith. You're the only other one I know that's got one of these. I mean, there's going to be a lot of factors, David. It'd be really hard to sort of just say this right out of the gate. If your guiding is really good, or if your tracking is really good, and your guiding is quite good, and everything's quite stable, I usually gravitate towards a 3-minute capture. I don't know what a Pegasus can do. Keith will have to talk a little bit about that. Most of this comes down to how good is your tracking, how good is your guiding, how well does the subject stay in front of your camera. And then I tend to maximize the histogram. Don't blow the stars out. Make sure you get at least 30 images, and don't yeah, just don't overexpose anything, and you'll do quite well. My bet is I don't know what an SQM18 Sky is. This is the photographer, not the scientist here. I think I'm missing that little bit, but yeah, 30 seconds sounds like it's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, Dave, I don't know what you're using to set up your guiding, but yeah, I know that for sure the best way to use a smart eye is to just let it go along for the ride and let something else handle your guiding and everything else. Yeah, there you go. That.
Oh,
Nice. Yep. Yep. I mean, because yeah, I mostly use the smart eye for outreach, and it's great for that. But as far as yeah, trying to get little tiny stars, I've not gone there. Although it's proportion, they're supposed to actually get there. They just put out a new release for that has like that will drive an autofocuser, which is
Nice.
pretty cool.
I will say that that Smart Eye has a ASI, or has the 533 sensor in it, and
Yep.
that's a brilliant sensor. So you got lots of potential there if you can get the tracking good.
Yep. And it's a baby. It's a baby product still version one
Yeah,
on stuff.
it's really.
All right. What else do we have in the? Oh, we got another question. All right. Cool. It's fine. This is nothing for me. Thanks.
I didn't really know anything about astrophotography, so that was a pretty fascinating intro. And the difference between shooting in color and mono, if I'm understanding it right, you're changing a setting on the camera to shoot mono, and then you're using. Oh,
No. No,
okay,
so
no.
maybe I didn't make that clear. So let me just say, I think monochrome cameras do not have the Bayer filter installed in front of the sensor. They are
Okay,
just
so you can't
photosite.
just.
And so it's one or the other. You have to buy a mono camera or buy a color camera, and then once you've gone down that path, then you have your options laid out in front of you.
So I think that answers my actual question then, because I was going to ask if you could do that on one of these smart telescopes, but if it's the sensor itself, it sounds like you can't.
Oh yeah,
So,
so the interesting. I mean, it's a topic of conversation. We can definitely take it online, but like once you have that Bayer filter in front of your camera, you cannot stop filtering a photosite from being red or green or blue. That's it's getting filtered that way. And so when we take a color camera and we put a multi-band filter in front of it, it's a filter on top of a filter, and so you're already kind of cutting some of that stuff out. They're fairly different paths. I mean, I understand how similar they feel, but you basically you're setting yourself up early, right at the start. I'm going to shoot mono or I'm going to shoot color. And my recommendation, because I want people to be happy really quickly, start with a color camera and do all those things and get really comfortable with it and get excited and crave more, and then buy yourself a monochrome camera and understand the complexity that comes with that.
Oh, and actually, I was I have a question for you too, Ben, related to this actually myself. I actually was remiss about our most excellent astrophotography lending thing is the robotic observatory.
Yeah.
So if you want to feel the burn of mono astrophotography, you can without spending any money for that gear itself. Just get online and download all of the filtered images that you could ever want, and then pray for your hard drive.
I see Eric's got a question, and I'll hit that up.
Yep. Wait, real quick, Ben,
Yeah.
real quick. I was actually always wondering why are mono cameras more expensive than color, considering they are feature
I think it's
deficient.
because they do custom runs of hardware and there's less people buying them. So I, I'm going to get the number wrong, but I think the 2600 MC Pro, whatever it is, color camera uses an IMX 571 Sony sensor that is used for many other markets and many other things. And most of those markets do not want a monochrome. And so when you go down the path of monochrome, technically you're getting less, but you're also buying something less common. And I think that's what's driving the price up a little bit, just because the less people are buying them, less devices are made, and I should say fewer. I'm going to get in trouble here. But
Economy
yeah,
of
so
scale.
that
Yeah.
usually is the path for mono. And you're actually hit on something. Eric had just asked about filters, and part of the expense of mono isn't just that the camera's more expensive, is that you also have to buy filters, and filters, I hate to say it, can cost as much as the camera. They have a wild range on them, and you do kind of get what you pay for, unfortunately. And I would never suggest you go right to the ceiling because you could easily spend, thousands of dollars on your filters. I choose to use an Antlia set. They're medium expensive. They're very tight cut. The thing that I think is most important if people are going to go down this path is you get something called parfocal, where all of the filters use the same thickness of glass. And the advantage there is that that thickness of glass changes your focal plane. And so if you end up buying a bunch of different brands filters or different types, you have to refocus every time you change filters. And when it comes to that paradigm I was talking about, where like you have to shoot everything, an equal amount from all filters in order to be able to make anything at the end of the night. If you've chosen to shoot with different filters, then you we're probably not going to want to refocus between every image. And so what you'll probably do is shoot the first third of the night with this filter, and then the next third of the night with this filter, and the next third of the night with the last filter. And then there's a risk. There's a risk that clouds blow in, you don't get enough images to make a result. If you buy parfocal filters, that is, all the filters are the same thickness so that you do not have to refocus each time, then you can just cycle through them freely without refocusing. And the result is that you get to the end of the night with sort of an equal number of red, green, and blue, or however you've chosen to filter. And that's going to be a savior if you get to the cutoff early and you want to make sure you have something to walk away with. Does that make sense?
Excellent. Let's see. Anyone else? We got one. All right, Mike.
Hey Ben, I know how to do it, but maybe you could speak to solar because it's completely different,
Aye.
but for other people.
Yeah, I think that's a great touch, and I glazed right over it. There's so many different types of astrophotography. So solar lens in a very similar space as the planetary stuff. There's a lot of similarities, not the same. Um, White light versus hydrogen alpha filtering. The hydrogen alpha filtering that we tend to do in solar is a much, much narrower slice than the hydrogen alpha we tend to do for nighttime astrophotography. I just fear somebody trying to think that those are the same things and burning the inside of their telescope or their camera out. Dedicated hydrogen alpha scopes are wonderful. They make pretty things. And you tend to shoot that the same way that you would shoot planetary, in that you'll shoot a video sequence and then extract from the video sequence the best frames and then stack the best frames together. And then when you get really fancy about it, you tend to go into these packages like AutoStackert and Registax. And what it does is it actually takes your solar disk after you're sort of got them all loaded in, you've got them all centered on the rest of it, and it fractures it into many tiny little images, and it aligns on all the details, and then restacks all that back together. It's quite a process, but it is the way to get the last mile out of your data. So again, ASI Studio, free software. If you're using their equipment, it's just so easy to get 80% of the way there. To get that last 20% takes a significant amount of effort going down other paths with other bits of software, but you will get a little bit more data out of it. And again, you're doing the same thing. You shoot a video, you extract the good frames, and then you go and sample it down and enhance those little details. And that's where all those beautiful solar images come out. Was that Michael Jackson who was asking that question? Because he's probably the expert in the club.
Yeah, I know, but he was making you do the work.
Okay, so next time he has to stand on the stage.
Yep. So while we're kind of there, can you extrapolate a little bit on why, what's so specific about planetary cameras versus a deep sky camera?
Yeah, there's some fine nuances in there as well. So generally speaking, planetary cameras are you're biasing for frame rate. Sounds a bit weird, but you tend to shoot video in these cases, and because our subject is rotating, what you don't want to do is stack a bunch of data from a long duration into the same bit because you're going to end up with is a motion blur, for lack of better terms, as the planet rotates. If you're stacking images over a long duration, it's terrible. And you tend to want a couple thousand images to start with so that you can shed 80% of the ones that have a little jiggle or blur to them and just get the best images and stack them. So planetary cameras tend to have small sensors, not very high resolution, and then you stack those images to get the result of those images together, and hopefully they were all caught in a very short period of time. 30 seconds worth of video at 150 frames a second is a nice way to attack this. And it's quite shocking actually when you look into it because a lot of these planetary images come from a resolution that's 400 or 500 pixels across. It's very, very tiny video in order to get that speed up. But when they're stacked together, what you do is you drizzle them into a larger container. You end up with an image that's twice the resolution of what you started with as you sort of are stacking all this stuff from a very small resolution sensor. So very high frame rate, but like the solar, but in this case, very few pixels. So the sensors are tiny so that you get a little bit more reach and you get the planetary tends to be quite bright stuff. So sensitivity isn't as key as it is for your deep sky objects. Is that what you're talking about, Keith?
Yeah, that was good.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's always the thing. It's like, oh, why can't I take planetary with my whatever, with a C star or whatever? And that's always the thing.
Yeah.
It's
Well, I mean, it's a great comment actually because C-Star. I mean, I've been trying, and actually, I've just ordered the new C-Star S50 Pro. I think it's a wonderful kit, and somebody who wants to get involved, I think technically it sounds really great in there. But those little smart devices just tend to blow planetary stuff out, and I'm not quite sure why they haven't tapped into that yet. I think it'd be super fun to get some Jupiter or what have you from a smart scope. But what I've seen of them so far is they blow these planets out. That's always been a bit frustrating for me. Anyway.
Yep, and you got another question from Martin Mohan there. He says, what do you think about the trade between a large and expensive sensor on a camera, which he doesn't have, to get a decent field of view with a long focal length SCT, which he does have, versus buying a smaller sensor, which is cheaper camera, and a dedicated astrophotography scope, like an APO refractor?
Wow.
So basically, a big field of view telescope with a small sensor versus a small sensor on a big field of view.
So
Sorry, big.
my epiphany moment when I first got into this is I bought myself 110 millimeters, a 710 millimeter focal length, but 110 across the end of the refractor. And it was a wonderful experience for me. And it comes down from the fact that your field of view is fixed in what we're doing. And there's only so many subjects throughout the year that fit your field of view in a healthy way. And so for me, the thing that sort of, when somebody says, what should I get? I'm starting out, or what should I get when I'm headed down this path? It's usually where are they going to have the most fun, easiest, still make great images because at the end of the day, the Elephant Trunk Nebula is much bigger and just as beautiful as one of these smaller, tiny little, I don't even know, tiny little nebulas that are very far away. They still look beautiful when they're both taken, but that wider field was so much easier to be successful with that's what got me hooked. If I struggled with a long focal length telescope early to get images, I probably would have quit. And so I'm always encouraging people to be excited and happy and successful by starting with an 80 or 100 mil scope refractor because they're easy, and have a great time with it. And then branch out to imaging from an SCT. I almost quit. I own an Edge HD and I almost quit because it was so hard to use for a while. But yeah,
I,
that's my
I
path.
suspect a part of what he's getting on about is having a wide field of view telescope with a small sensor versus having a small field of view telescope with a large sensor, though. I mean,
Yeah,
that's a resolution thing, right?
yeah, it is so there's I don't yeah, large sensor doesn't necessarily mean resolution. So there's some sensors that are quite big and have huge pixels and they're very sensitive, but they actually don't have high resolution. So there's a bit of a couple paths within there, but that SCT imaging will always be harder to get your guiding and tracking and everything right than that wider refractor. That wider refractor, starting again, doing that kind of heading down that path, an apo refractor will be so much easier to be successful with than you trying to get imaging working nicely in a long focal length SCT. And I'm not saying don't do it. I did it, and I'm happy I'm doing it now. But I was so much happier initially on a wide refractor,
I'll
and you got
speak
to
to
be
that a little
successful.
bit. Yeah. Now that we got that C4, I keep forgetting. Now we have the C14 up at SCAS, which is available for imaging as well. And yeah, after going after Bubble Nebula a couple times at native 4,000 millimeters, I can agree with you. When you have those big chonky stars,
Ooh,
guiding is
it's challenging.
precarious at best.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Shane's got one.
Uh-oh.
Always in the middle.
Hey, Ben.
Hey, buddy.
Is there much difference in how far outside the visual range any of these sensors get? And is that changing at all?
That's a great comment, and I think that ties a little bit into the mono versus color conversation too. I mean, they say a little bit wider than our field of view. I would rely on some of the smart scientists in the room to talk about how much these things actually emit into UV and IR. But a mono sensor that doesn't have that RGB Bayer filter over it is already likely to be able to capture more of these things. Now, each sensor falls a little bit wider than what we can see, and so we often talk about putting a UV or an IR filter, cut filter, over our telescope to stop the excess IR and UV from landing in our sensor. And that's because these things all sort of focus in a different place. And so if you just wholesale include all the things in your image, all the spectrum, and the sensor could see really wide, you actually end up with a terribly soft, kind of mushy image. And so these UV IR filters tend to, get rid of that stuff to increase crispness. And so planetary cameras, as we were kind of just touching on, they typically don't have that filter on them, and so you kind of have to put them on. So the little 585 that I use doesn't have that filter built into it, and so I kind of have to put it on each time to increase that crispness. Um, so are they going wider? I mean, I think traditional handheld cameras, DSLRs, sensors Sony's making, when Sony makes most of our sensors, let's be honest about that. They don't want them to see into IR or UV unless they are specifically asked for because it degrades the quality image. They tend to get a little bit softer. Um, it's a great comment, though. My bet is that there's some cameras available to us that just focus heavily on IR or UV that are way out of our price range that would be interesting to use once or twice.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Again, it's worth noting that this is actually meant to be the first in a series of seminars to get together to learn this stuff. So Ben, what's the best way for people to find you if they're interested? Because you're planning to get together to do an in-person thing next, or what are
Yeah,
you?
what I'm hoping to do. So that's a great comment, Keith. What I'm hoping to do is that on our astrophotography forum, the subset within Groups IO, we've started a poll about what is it that people want to see next, and we should probably refresh it and do another one. What should episode 2 be? And then we'll find the right person in the club who's the biggest expert in that particular thing. I think what people are asking for the most and what I've seen is more deep sky stuff about image stacking and that kind of processing. But let's see. I would encourage people to go onto that astrophotography sub channel within Groups IO and make a request. And if it helps Keith, you or I can put a post out like specifically asking for feedback on this and see if we can guide some direction.
100%. And for anyone that doesn't know how to get onto that Groups IO forum or to get on forums that you're not automatically on, free to reach out to me at president@laas.org, and I will show you how to do it. There's a lot of there's more to the Groups.io than what you're automatically subscribed to. I mean, I know a lot of people have gotten some really good deals from the trading post alone, but yeah, there's more. There's a blinding amount, I will say, and that Rasa rig is meant for you to use. It is a really simple rig to assemble. I mean, that was the Astro trip. Nasir, I'll put him under the bus. Nasir helped. Nasir and Ben showed me how to use this thing. I had no clue how to use any of this highfalutin stuff, and by the second night, I didn't break it, which was cool. Thank you.
Hey Keith,
I'm
it's
proud to
worth at
say-
least saying that anyone that wants to use that thing, it doesn't come with your own phone or tablet, and it doesn't come with the thumb drive for you to haul the images
Yes.
away. So
Yes.
make sure you bring, if you're going to use it, if you plan to use it, let somebody know so that somebody else isn't taken ahead of you. And bring an iPad and a thumb drive. And if you want to know what kind of thumb drive, just reach out. We'll find you.
And the app that you run is the ASI app, and it's free.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it, and it's a pleasure to use for
Yes.
certain. All right, anyone else?
It also runs on Android devices, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
Sorry, you may have noticed a little Apple logo on my first page there. I just seem to speak that. Yeah, but it works on
Yeah,
Android.
it doesn't mean the other stuff doesn't exist, Ben.
Sure. Yeah. No.
Just in your house. Yeah.
Randy's got his hand up.
Yeah. Hey, Keith, Randy. So
Randy.
I'm assuming that folks that might want to use that Rosla rig at SCAS do not need to be star members. They can coordinate to get up there and play with it.
Yeah, it's there. I mean, if ends up being a groundswell of people that want to use it just for training purposes only, it doesn't have to live at SCAS. It's very portable. So it can, I mean, if it's determined that it's better off at Garvey, sure. That this is it's a club scope. It belongs to all of us.
Yeah.
So, it's worth noting. Thank you to Ben specifically for helping me make that happen. Also to member Michael Cantor for donating the scope itself, and ZWO made that happen for us too. They gave us a hefty discount to make the rest of it happen. So that's pretty excellent. But yeah, it belongs to us all. So wherever it needs to be is where it's going to go. This Saturday it's going to be at Lockwood. It's Dark Sky Night. You should come. I apologize to your wife. Okay. If there's nothing else, is there anything else? There's nothing else. Thank you very much, Ben. Okay. The announcements are few but cool. The California Science Center / Samuel Ocean Air and Space Center is looking for volunteers, and they reached out to our club. If you wish to volunteer at the Science Center in the new area that houses the space shuttle, look for future information about that. They reached out to us specifically, and they're looking for us to participate in that. So if you are, let me know. Furthermore, write for the bulletin. Michael, I'm doing it. I'm telling everyone to write for the bulletin. Yeah, I'm on it. Yeah, and there's a new bulletin that just came out today. It's awesome. Yeah, it's really great. Like we said before, you don't have to be an expert like Ben. Just talk about your experience with the club or with astronomy in general, or where weird path it's taken you. What cool people you've met on the street doing outreach, or even the uncool people you've met on the street doing outreach. Tim, you've only been to Silver Lake once. What's that? No, I don't think he did. He didn't. Come again. We'll concierge it for you. Just be in the front. Also, Ed Dempsey, who runs the club Instagram, he also had a similar request. If you wished to have your cool astrophotography image that you're really proud of, go to our 30,000 subscribers to our Instagram to send a direct message to to the club Instagram, and he'll likely repost it. That's a really cool way for you to be celebrated by the universe that is on Instagram. Okay, that's it for that. Now for the good heavens, which is basically my monthly appreciation to a club member that has made us all more fortunate for their existence. This month's good heavens is going to go to our own Greg Thompson, who happens to be here. That's awesome. There he is. He's at the top. He's on high. Greg Thompson is our new treasurer this year. I'm really excited to work with him in that capacity. He has taken what is likely the most tedious post required by the club and has definitely shown himself to be up to the task. Many of you know him as a regular at Garvey, and he is the instructor for our scouting nights over there, which is also really awesome. Whenever you see a bunch of Cub Scouts around, they're like a moths to a flame, and that flame is Thompson Gregory. In a short amount of time in his new post as treasurer, he's been proactive in making it his own. He's enacted new efficiencies right away and has been a fantastic communicator, and he's put a lot of those into place already, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Greg. I wasn't sure when John decided to retire from the post, I was really scared there that we weren't going to have anyone. I was like, Greg, please. I know. You know how long those 3 months were for me, man? But also, yeah, you're great. So not only that. All right, well, let's do some door prizes. Let's give some stuff away.
For those of you on Zoom, I've posted the link in the chat for the drawing.
All right, speaking of our bulletin editor, let's have him come up on stage. Let's so you can all see what he looks like. There he is. Look at him. Look at that. Okay, I'm gonna give you the mic. No, come back. What do I gotta do? You're gonna be announcing numbers, and the people are gonna come up.
I thought I was just going to Van and White this.
No.
Oh, okay. All right, so I'm going to pull a number, and then I can't see anything. My glasses on. Okay, 833-5500. Hey, you got a green laser. No, I don't know. What are the prizes?
It's either a green laser or a 50%.
So a $50 credit on the on-store.
I'll take the $50 credit. I think I've already got one. I haven't used it.
That's true. Yes,
Yeah.
that is true.
Well, okay. All right. That one's mine. All right. I'm going to pull another number. Second number is 833-5492. That's not me. Oh, it's all front row stuff tonight. Fantastic.
This is the magic corner.
That's correct. We got a match. Oh, perfect. Do we have them?
Yeah, they're here.
Oh, they're here. Okay, so we'll get that to you after the show. Excellent. Is that it?
That is all. You are relieved.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Oh yeah, and write something good for the bulletin. To Keith's point about writing what you know, there's a fantastic the girl that came up and did her trip to New Zealand and Australia last month. Last month, she talked about it.
In December.
Anyway, a couple months ago.
December.
Okay, she wrote a fantastic article at our request, and it's in there. So do that kind of stuff. Thanks.
All right. Oh, all right. All right, let's go. You ready to introduce yourself to the club? I know. You're squeaky new. It's all right. Yeah. You don't have to say much. Just say your name and what brought you to the club.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Ravi. I just joined in January, and some of you guys might have seen me at the banquet. I just joined because I always had an interest in astronomy, but I never really pursued it. I just, when you're a kid, everyone tells you go to school, study, get a job. And so now that I am comfortable in life, I was like, let's join astronomy club. So here I am.
Ravi, where did you first meet? Was it at Griffith first? Yeah. She went from Griffith to the banquet to the general meeting. She's coming after me. I can tell it. I know, but yeah, she's gonna go right for the board. Yeah, I know, right? This is my brute right here. Oh man, what is that? Don't tempt me with a good time. Is that how that goes? How's that? All right. So we've done all of the things now. Here comes the upcoming events.
Oh wait, you need the drawing for the online.
Oh, we need the online people. All right, Spencer, go at it.
Okay, all right. Hang on one second. So I only see 7 out of the 15 for online people who've registered. So I'll give you another 30 seconds to register. The
Your odds are
link
good
is
for winning. Register. Yeah.
all right. Okay, I'm gonna close it out unless. Okay, hang on. All right, here we go.
Ben, the telescope that we're going to be taking in on Wednesday, I can't wait to show you. It's going to be we're going to have a shootout.
Okay,
It's
so
gonna be cool.
the first one is Dylan Head, and I believe he's a new member. Aren't you, Dylan?
Yeah, this is my first meeting. That's wild and unexpected. That's awesome. Thank you.
Okay, we need
Dylan,
what?
what did Dylan win? Is he getting he's getting the gift store or the gift at the web store? Yes.
Okay, is that it or just one more?
One more.
Okay. Let's see.
Rob Komodo.
Okay, so Ben Guthrie. he won a green laser, right?
The system's not rigged. I mean, it's rigged. No.
I don't trust Ben with any optics. Don't give him a laser. All right. Congratulations to you all. May you wear it proudly, be it a laser or a shirt or whatever. Okay. So if this meeting wasn't enough for you, there's another one next month on March 9th in this exact same place. We have our speaker lined up for that, but I'm not allowed to tell you who it is. Actually, I am allowed, but I'm just not going to. The next Griffith Park Star Party here is going to be on the this month on February 21st. Our next outreaches that we have coming up, we have one at the Santa Fe Springs Library on the 27th. We have our weekly Silver Lake event on Thursday on the 12th. Our next big one with the band, we have another band all ready to go. It's going to be a really good one. On the 19th, Tim, come and you can meet some weird people. They might feel the same way about you, buddy. Yep. This next Santa Monica outreach, I'm going to hit one of those one of these days, is on Saturday the 21st. If you live on the west side and you want to take part in some sidewalk astro, join that one. Family night is done until the spring. The next Dark Sky night is this Saturday on the 14th. So join your fellow LAAS member at SCAS Weather should be a little better than it was last month. The sky looks pretty good right now, so come on up. The Mount Wilson Star Parties are done for the season still, so look for that to pop up again in the springtime. Same thing goes with the 60-inch and 100-inch nights. If you want to see how the club legislation works out, our next board meeting is on March the 4th. You're welcome to attend. It's a Zoom thing. And if you care to join the Lockwood Committee, there's a lot of really exciting discussion about the future of that going on right now. This is a really, we'll call it a fertile time to be a part of the Lockwood Committee. So if you feel like, if you're feeling fertile also, then you can get into that. I heard chuckles, so that landed with somebody. I don't care. I'm here for entertainment. It's a hobby club, Tim. And that's the long and short of it. Does anybody else wish to make anything known about their astronomical life? Tim's got one. What do you got? All right.
So there is a notice in the bulletin, but I want to reinforce it, that Mount Wilson Observatory, the greatest observatory in the history of mankind, in case you didn't already know it, is looking for docents for our new training season. So you can go to the Mount Wilson Observatory webpage, or you can come and talk to me at Garvey or whatever, and our first training class will be on March 7th. But if you're really enthusiastic about working with the public and teaching people about the history as well as the science of astronomy, talk to me, and we will make a master docent out of you. Thank you.
There you go. There was a New Year's resolution you didn't even know you had. Awesome. All right. Well, barring that, I think we are going to call it good. Finished early tonight. Again, thank you very much, Ben Guthrie. And definitely reach out to me at president@laas.org if you have any questions regarding anything that he said, or if you want to make a connection for you to him or participating in future seminars. Please do. All right. Good night.